I owe my life to these people, folks. I really, truly do owe my life to these people. And I know that you would want to know what happened, where you been all this time. And it's so much better for them to tell you because, like I say, I was unconscious for a long time, and they came to my rescue. And it started out the morning of the 14th of November, 2023, with our Will East. And Will, what happened that morning?
Well, Lance called me and said, Mary's not here, which is kind of weird. He called me at like 9 o'clock. I'm always running late, so of course I was running late that day. And he said, Mary's not here, but she has a guest here. And I thought, well, is she off today? But she has a guest there. That's not like Mary. And so I did a little research, looked at my email, said, well, Mary's supposed to be working today. That's not like her. And I got kind of worried at that point, and I knew that Chuck Odom lived in your neighborhood or somewhere.
He's one of our people.
I happen to know some of your other guests,
yes,
but I didn't know they lived there.
Yes, but Chuck Odom is here, too.
But I knew Chuck lived nearby, so I called Chuck's wife. I didn't have Chuck's number. I called Chuck's wife, and she got in touch with Chuck, and he said, I'll go down there and check on her. And I said, well, something's not right. Mary's not here. She's always here at least 30 minutes early before her show starts. And the fact that her guest is here and she's not here, that really set off the alarms. And that's kind of where we went from there.
And Chuck Odom is here to tell us. So what happened? Thanks, Will. So what happened after you talked to Chuck? How did you get the other? Chuck lives about, a half a block away. Mm-hmm. This is all in our subdivision of Palisades. And most of everybody is on Peninsula Drive. What a great street we have. So when you heard from Will, what did you do? Who did you call? Because how did you get my next doors?
Well, that's kind of interesting. I just went straight on over there, and at the same time, I'm looking in the front windows, and then the Priestes come over.
Yeah, you're going to meet them too, Sarah and Ray Priest, who live next door to me. Okay.
So we combined resources, and I believe that Sarah went to the back. We stayed on the front, looking through windows, trying doors, and all this, and ringing the doorbell.
But Sarah heard something really. You heard the noise that Heidi made, my dog. You said that it was not like Heidi, right?
Yeah, that day definitely. When I got a message as well saying you were not there at work, I came out and I told Ray, my husband, I said Mary didn't show up for work, and that's definitely not like her.
Mm-hmm.
She's so passionate about this, and I think that was one of the first real divine parts of it was your passion for your work.
We're going to cry over this, but that's okay. That's okay, Sarah. We can cry. This is a God thing.
As we were kind of talking about, people don't show up for work a lot, and, people don't send any, troops out looking for them. But your people knew that if you weren't there that day, it was something wrong, and they were right. I also just had a feeling. I told Ray, I said, maybe it was just a woman thing. If something has happened to her and maybe she's in a vulnerable way, it should probably be me that just goes and checks on it. And when I went to the door, with Chuck, Heidi was barking, but it was just a little different. We didn't see any signs of distress from that point, but something was just a little different. And I, told them the same. I'm going to go around back. And, oh gosh,
This is when you looked in my kitchen door. It's all windows.
I mean, honestly, Ray and I talked about it. When I looked through the window, I could just see the very tips of your feet. And Mary, it could have been, 4 inches further that, you were further into your kitchen, or I don't know how long it would have been before we actually went inside, because there would have been really no evidence that there was something wrong. We might have just thought, you were out or whatever. But as soon as I saw your feet, I just screamed.
You screamed, didn't you?
I screamed, and then I called Ray on the phone, and I said, come back here. And, they acted very quickly, tried to find a way in, and then, unfortunately had to break the door, but...
I'm getting a new one. My insurance company is going to pay. Thank God for insurance, but
thank goodness.
Yes.
And then nothing just really prepares you for tragedy, and that's just what it was. It was that point.
Indeed. And that's the voice of Sarah Priest. And so you, Ray, you and Chuck decided. The two of you decided we got to bust this door down.
Yeah,
we got to take the glass out.
That was pretty much the next step. As soon as Sarah screamed and we knew where you were and that you needed assistance, Chuck and I kind of jumped in and went straight to looking for loan furniture to break the window. And sorry about that, but we had to get you.
Not a problem. Is that what you used?
An umbrella stand.
Oh, an umbrella. Oh, that's
Yeah,
what
an
that
umbrella
umbrella
stand.
Oh, okay. It's
Yeah.
a heavy one too.
It worked great.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we busted in, and Sarah immediately jumped in, sprang into action, went directly to assist you. And I think Chuck was the one who called 911.
Yeah.
Got the ambulance there, and Sarah laid with you there and comforted you until.
But I didn't really know. I guess I did know a little bit, right? When you were you asked me some questions.
I mean, at first when we went in, I immediately went to you, but we were really uncertain just based on what it looked like. You know, if someone had been there, if there was someone still there, if something had harmed you, if it was an accident. You know, we really didn't know based on what we were looking at, and so immediately Chuck and Ray just kind of swept the house just to make sure it was
but
secure.
there was nobody there.
But you really were just in bad shape.
Yes.
I'll spare the gory details of it, but
I haven't even heard the gory details. I mean, I have seen a picture. It was pretty bad. I had blood on me. I had my nightgown on and blood on me.
There was a lot of blood everywhere. And
Yes. I don't understand how that happened.
you really were not showing a whole lot of sign of life. I immediately just went down there on the floor with you, and I just kind of held your head and was taking my hand to kind of stimulate your back. I knew that I wasn't going to try to move you, but you started having, really shallow breathing, so I could tell that you were alive. But at that point, I don't even know what I said. But for the next 20 minutes, I just talked over and over and over, and just, Mary, Sarah, we're here. We're here to help you. You're okay. And
Did I react?
you at that point started just shivering, just really kind of like shaking. And I asked one of them, I don't even know which one, I asked them for a towel. We covered you up because you were in your nightgown. And
Didn't know that.
there were times where there was just some noise from you, but really not a lot. There, at one point, your breathing was so very
got
shallow.
so-
I thought you had stopped breathing, and perhaps you did. And in all of this, Heidi really kind of kept her distance. And
Interesting.
at this point, she came over and really started to nudge you. And I said, Mary, Heidi is here, and she wants you to know that you're okay. And at that point, you took just the biggest gasp, and you even started mumbling, and you tried to, I wouldn't say sit up because you were not in the capacity to do that, but you did make some movement where I was like, no, don't try to get up. It's okay though.
Gosh.
And, there were a couple of times where that would happen again, where I just really felt like I couldn't tell if you were breathing or not. And I would just say, if you can hear me, just wiggle your toes. Don't try to get up. Don't try to move. If you can hear me, just wiggle your toes. And you would move them. You would, every single time you would just, acknowledge that you could hear me.
Wow. Wiggled my toes, huh?
Wiggle your toes, yeah. It felt like an eternity. I do think it was 20 plus minutes before first responders got there. The police had come, but I think I told you they were more annoying to me. They kept asking what I thought were ignorant questions to me, and I'm like,
She's here.
She needs help. I'm not worried about what direction the glass from the door came. I don't know, but
And how it got there.
yeah.
Because they thought it was a break-in, right,
Yes,
Chuck? Isn't
yes.
that what they
Yeah, they
thought?
did.
That's what we thought at first.
Yeah, because you
Well, and I think when they got there and they saw that the door was broken, that was their assumption too. And then he was, I'm here on the floor with you, and they're asking me questions. I'm like, I'm not the one. Ask somebody else. We broke that door. And then they just kept asking, how the door got broken. I'm like, we broke it. We broke it. We did that. Not an intruder. We did. We are the intruder.
I never heard this either. Almost every day I hear things that I didn't know about, and I didn't know about that they were like that with you. Forgot.
Yeah.
Well, what the heck. Did they put crime tape around my house?
No.
No,
They didn't? Oh, okay. Good.
for the record,
No.
when we were trying to break the door, I said, well, heck, there's something. It was a garden trowel. So I tapped it one time.
Oh, yeah, my
nothing
trowel.
happened.
Yeah,
He said,
really.
let me try.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's when you found that heavy umbrella stand?
That's right.
And it's
Yeah.
a real heavy wrought iron thing. I mean, it
was
weighs a
very-
ton.
Yeah.
And it usually belongs down by the boat. I don't understand how it got by the door, but it was there for a
It was
reason,
there,
I guess,
you
that
know
day.
what? We talk about it. That was another thing. I don't know what we would have used at that point because, it was just the right tool there at the right time for sure. Because, like Chuck said, the garden trowel
That
wasn't doing
didn't
it.
do a thing. Yeah,
Wasn't
really.
doing it.
That's. I keep it out there because sometimes I tap around and pull up weeds with it or whatever, and
Yeah.
it just happened to have been out there. Well, you wrote me that beautiful note, and do you want to read it or do you want me to read it?
Do
Either
we
one,
have
we're
to
going
read
to
it,
cry.
Mary?
It's so
I
beautiful.
I will just.
Because you said it, but it was so beautiful. Just 'cause
Well, you told me when you came home, and you really didn't know the circumstances. I guess just having been in the hospital and then in your rehab care, I guess the story of really what happened was kind of elusive to you. You didn't know all the details.
didn't know. No,
And
like I said, I hear about it now.
you came home and you learned about that, and you sent me a note. You text me.
Well, this was
And
just so pretty. But I'll do it if you want. If
Okay.
you don't want to do it, because
No, you can
here's what she
do
wrote
it.
to me after I had come home, and you talked about somebody had called 911. I laid with you for about 25 minutes. I have no idea what I said to you. I swear I just talked random stuff over and over and over just to keep you stimulated. At one point, your breathing was so shallow, I thought, this is it. I said, Mary, Heidi wants to tell you that it's all okay. You took a deep breath and started trying to say something and even tried to roll over. I asked you if you could just wiggle your toes if you could hear me, and you did several times. I swear, though, to be so close to this, well, it was an unusual thing that it did take a long time for the ambulance to get there, but I think the EMTs got there, didn't they? She said, and you said, I do believe it was all divine timing, though, that I was home. You were in bad shape, and I just am so thankful you pulled through this the way that you have. You're right. There are big plans for you in this life, because I've told people, God said to me, I think he said something like, you know what, Mary? I'm not taking you home yet. You got to stay down there and do some more things before I call you upstairs.
Yeah, you told me that when you came home. You told me
Yeah.
that you felt
Yes.
like
There's got to be a reason for it.
There's more work for you to do.
Yep,
And
there sure is. After all was said and done, Chuck came to my house a few days later. I love this part too, to tell me that I was the calmest, collected person under pressure he had ever seen. It's like I just knew what you needed and what to do. So maybe that's my purpose here too, to make sure you fulfill yours. Thank you so much, Sarah. I mean, my gosh, I'm just sitting here. I'm about to lose it, but it's so beautiful. Isn't that beautiful?
Oh, it's
That is such a beautiful note. And I said, oh man, we've got to have that. That's got to be on the air. But I knew it would be hard for you to read. But
yeah, it's. I have to say, like coming back to visit you when you came home, because again, no one really prepares you for seeing something like that. And Chuck
Right.
and I talked a little bit afterwards. We had talked about how he came to check on me, and he's like, "How are you doing?" I just keep seeing it over and over, and it was a lot of that. But you being back home and me coming to your house to visit with you and to see you alive standing in your kitchen versus the picture that my head kept replaying was really therapeutic and just a blessing to see you back. And
oh yeah. Well, so Chuck, you went over and told her, or she came. How did you the message, or how you told her that she was the calmest person you'd ever seen under a situation like that? Was that the time, or
It was several days later,
Yeah.
and the more I reflected on it, the more I thought that this is a special person. And,
yes, absolutely.
And I know from
Absolutely.
history in Vietnam and whatnot that EMTs were routinely aboard the dust-offs. They weren't as calm as
Wow.
she was. Sarah was just a champ. And one of the things I might add right now, it's kind of a lesson learned, and that is when you live alone, have a specific time that you can call a neighbor both in the morning and in the afternoon.
to let 'em know.
Hey, I'm just home.
Yeah,
We need
Ray,
to work on that.
what were you thinking about all this time? You saw Sarah with me, and like what?
Well, kind of like Chuck said, just grateful that she is strong as she is.
Yes.
That Sarah did what she did.
It's amazing.
It was
It's amazing.
It was a blessing.
Yeah,
Everything.
you called on things you didn't know you had.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like to think that, anybody would do that, but we all just acted.
No.
Yeah,
Didn't
all of
even
you,
think
absolutely.
There was no
everybody. All
there was
these
no
people.
hesitation from anybody, and not just the people here in the studio today. There were so many people that
Yes.
just really stepped up
Yep.
and were just a huge part of you being here today.
Yes, and I owe all of you my life. Really, I don't think I can say thank you enough times and tell you how gratified I am, because everything is. It's like I'm still processing this. I still can't quite get it through my head. Like, that happened to me. It's like when I talk about it and I tell people, I'm telling people what happened, but it's like it's like an almost out of body thing. I'm talking about me. I'm talking about me. We're going to take a break here, folks, and we're going to bring Karen Atkinson in. She is one of the people who was on the Heidi duty this week. Team Heidi is what she was on. Because when I woke up, first thing I thought about, what about my Heidi? She's more important than I am. Go take care of my dog. So we'll be back in just a few minutes on Mary Wieden and You. Stay where you are. My feet were a little, shall we say, out of commission for a while. Hi, it's Mary Wieden and You. Glad to have you along with us. I'm having people tell you what happened to me, because I was unconscious for really a couple of weeks. That started around the 14th of November is when I was discovered. It maybe started on the 13th of November. We're not sure. We don't know. But I was on my kitchen floor, for a long period of time with a lot of blood around me and everything. And so I hope you heard the first part of the story where we talked about the people who came. They had to break the door in, and one of the people who called 911 is here. He has also helped break the window. It's okay. It's a door, and it's getting replaced. It's a 25-year-old door, and I'll just say Pella. They're going to replace it. They can't put glass in it. In their own product that's 25 years old, they can't do that. And so they're going to, my insurance will pay for a new door. But Chuck Odom, so you who did you ask at the ER how my condition or something like that?
Well, when I went down there to ask, they couldn't answer the questions on your floor. You were in intensive care. But the nurse says, well, that's the ER physician that helped her.
Yeah.
And he was young, and I just walked up and said, is she doing well? And he said, yes, but thank God she got here, because normally when somebody is in that condition, her vitals were so low that she probably had maybe an hour if y'all hadn't have found her. So.
That's, I say, that's so unbelievable. I learn new things every day. And, just listening to her have Sarah talk about the things that she went through and thought about all this, that's new too. It's a bizarre experience, folks. And I'm having these people tell you because I can't. And I'm eternally grateful to them for doing what they did and coming to the rescue. And I've got Karen Atkinson with me here in the studio now. I love your part of the story where you said when you were out of town, right? And then go ahead. You were out of town, and then what?
Yeah, so one of our neighbors, our wonderful neighbors on Peninsula Drive, who all came to Heidi's rescue, Team Heidi.
Yeah, because she ran off at first. She ran away, didn't she? Well,
yeah, see, and I didn't even realize that at the time. But once we knew that you were at the hospital and that you were, doing better and stable, all of us were like, what about Heidi?
exactly right.
That's what we were concerned about next. So we were so glad to know that, we could pitch in and we could help and take care of her while you were away.
There were what, 5 of you?
Yes.
And there was a schedule.
Yes,
tell me
I know.
I love this.
Team effort.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I knew that first night that I had Heidi, we took
that's what you had.
selfies with Heidi, and even though I knew you weren't going to see them at that point, I knew the minute that you were able to, that would be your first question. So I sent those pictures. I'm like, don't worry about Heidi. We are taking great care of her. She's just waiting for you.
Yeah, well, Heidi saw Bert go away in a big red truck and never come home. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure, I guess she saw me loaded into the ambulance maybe. Mm-hmm. And what did she know? I mean, it terrified her. Everything about it terrified her. And she probably thought, oh, I've lost my mommy, Isn't that interesting where she went over to Ginger's house? And Ginger, by the way, who is not here because she's shy about public speaking. And I said, there's nothing to it. It's just easy. Ginger. It's just like, we're just like in our houses talking about this stuff. But anyway, she's a real hero, too, about the whole thing. She ran to the stores for me after I got into wisteria. All the things I wanted. She just takes care of me anyway. She's a wonderful caregiver, and shout out to her too. But so tell me about the schedule and who made it out and how you all did that. The Heidi schedule.
Yeah, well, Georgia.
This is
really
Georgia,
was the one that
my next door neighbor. She's out of town.
Next door neighbor.
Yes.
Yeah, so she set up the schedule immediately. And like I would say, well, I'm an early morning person, so I'm walking my dog. I would love to walk Heidi. So that's how that came about. And we each took a time of the day, and we kept in touch with one another. And when we had conflicts in our schedule, we would pitch in for the other one, and so we made it all work.
There's another neighbor who's a peninsula driver too. She told me she went over to take Heidi out, Susan, and went over to take her out one time. And she said, here's Heidi all by herself, and she didn't eat her food. And so Susan said, you're coming home with me. She and her husband, they take dogs in, and some stay for a long time, and, some are visitors. But she's got 2 big dogs. One of them is a yellow lab named Nola, and then she's got this huge black lab named Charlie, and he's blind. Yes. But she told me that they all loved each other, and Heidi loved them and they loved her. Nobody ever tried to take control. It was a true pack. And I was so proud of Heidi for that, because everybody had good things to say about her, except she will wet the floor when she gets nervous. And apparently she got real nervous at your house. I can see that, where that would happen. And I'm sorry about that.
She was good with me.
But she's good.
I was very proud of her as well, because really? I live directly next door, and I have a little yapping dog who is an instigator, and she and Heidi sometimes
instigated to each other.
But they were great. No, Heidi was just
that was good. That's like hearing that your kid was good.
Yeah.
But the thing about the pack deal, I've forgotten that in the first 3 years of her life, this Jack Russell Heidi that I talk about all the time, she's 11 now. Bert would take her upriver camping, and so they got all those dogs upriver, so she knows how to be part of a pack. So, cool. And the people next door to Susan have a young lab. He's probably about 8 months old by now. And they used to run together. And I've got a little video of them running. And she likes to run. Anyway, so that was cool, too. I mean, they all everybody got along. That's really great. And your dog, Little Bit, Karen has a longtime dog. They've lived down the street from us since 1997.
Yeah, we remember when you got Heidi.
And then we had Daisy.
Yes.
And then we got our first Heidi in 1998. And then we got this Heidi in 2012.
And then we adopted a Heidi.
You had a Heidi.
Who became Heidi, too.
Yes, that's right. Because you had schnauzers. You lost Oscar. Was his name Oscar?
Yes.
You lost Oscar, and then you got the girls. And they got these 2 schnauzers. And then I think... Then you got the other Heidi. She was a black schnauzer. Yours were silver. And the black one named Heidi. So for a while, folks, this woman here has had 3 dogs, but no big deal. I think that's so cool. We were talking about the possibility of adopting a second dog, a second Jack Russell. We heard about a veteran who had to go to a nursing home, and he couldn't take his dog. And Bert called me up on the phone. Do you think we can have this dog? Oh, I started to cry. So we have to meet the dog, though, and our Heidi has to decide. Well, then they called to say that the guy found a place where they take dogs. But I think it might have been your husband, or maybe it was probably your husband, Jim, said something like, oh, go ahead and take the dog. 2 dogs, that's no big deal.
Yeah.
Okay. We would have if Heidi would have approved, but it never, I was real happy for the veteran that he found a place. Chuck, that should warm your heart, too. Chuck Odom is Veterans of America. You're the Mississippi president, right?
I am.
Yes. So he would know about stuff like that. Anyway, so what was your time, Karen?
7 o'clock in the morning, yeah.
Okay. What did you go around the block, or did you just do the backyard or whatever?
No, we went around the block, and then I would take her in to play with a little bit for, at the house, and
little bits
and then
of hoot.
Put her back in her house with your TV on and your light. We always made sure that she felt like she was at home when she was at your home. So.
And somebody discovered, maybe y'all did, that she liked to watch Animal Planet. This was new to me. I've tried all these years to get her to watch dog stuff on Animal Planet, and she won't. She won't do stuff like that. And I'm so grateful for all of that, too. You know, Georgia, who's another next door neighbor, she's out of town too. She brought Heidi to see me at Wisteria, and Heidi was like, "Well, what are you doing here? And why aren't you home? And I don't know about this." And I was up in the bed; I could hardly move at first. My muscles tightened up, I guess, especially my back from being on it for 2 solid weeks, and maybe almost a third week because I got diagnosed with COVID when I first got there. So anyway, but then the next couple times, people brought her. It might have been Susan. I was in a wheelchair, and Heidi hated it. She just didn't want to come near me. Like, why? And then she was staying down at that house. Well, why aren't we home? Finally, I got to where I could sit on the bed, and she came and sat next to me. Except for the day when Susan brought her toenail clippers. And I said, "Oh, Heidi, we're going to clip your toenails." And she went right up in Susan's lap and held on to her neck like, no, don't do that.
Today.
And I thought, oh, dear, I've lost my dog. But anyway, that was just so wonderful that you did that. Do you talk about this stuff with with friends or relatives or your spouses at all? Or
Oh yeah, most
Do ya?
definitely. Yes, the ordeal that you went through.
But what you did though. I mean that's pretty spectacular. What all of you did. You made sacrifices and you had to do things that you didn't know what to do. And I'm really just.
I think we're proud of the neighborhood we live in, and we're all
Yeah.
friends, and
Yes.
good neighbors.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
We feel so good about that.
Tell me about the Heidi lunch. Did you go to that?
Yes.
I was going
The
to.
Friends of Heidi. Yes, lunch.
Did you hear about
Where
this,
was-
Chuck?
I have not.
No, tell about that one then.
We celebrated after you were home.
Oh no, I wasn't even. Well, I was at Wisteria when you did that because I was going to do something like that when I got home. I was like, oh, they took themselves out to lunch.
We celebrated.
Did you have a little?
that you were doing
a little
well.
toddy at lunchtime? I hope.
We definitely celebrated.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
It's fun and good group of women, that came together, and we felt proud of ourselves.
And one of the
able to
men
help you.
came. My next door neighbor, Bill Cruz. He's asleep now. He sleeps during the day, but he would come over. I'm told at 3:00 in the morning. He used to work a schedule like that for years and years and years, and he was up all night long. So anyway, he would come over at 3:00 in the morning and see to Heidi. So that's all I know. I haven't really gone into discussion with him, but he would hold her and all that kind of stuff, and watched Animal Planet. I guess that's pretty funny. That was so wonderful. I remember somebody said something like, you're going to be away for quite a while. You have to think about what to do for Heidi. Well, it was already out of my hands, but you'd already done that, hadn't you?
Well, it's just through a network of, I guess, dog lovers that we're associated with and our friends. I did have someone that volunteered because they said your husband, Bert, was always a longtime favorite of theirs, and yourself as well. And she's a big fan, listens to you
Really?
every week.
Oh, great.
And so she
Hi.
said if she needs our help, I would be more than glad to adopt Heidi.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we're just glad that she wasn't needed.
Yes, really.
And
Yeah.
Heidi's back home.
Oh, Heidi's back home. It took her a little bit of time to get used to being home, because it's like, are we really home? I mean, I can just read her mind. I can just know her thinking. Are we really home to stay? Are you here to stay? Are you
Yes.
going to go away again? Am I going to go away again? You think that, oh, well, it's just a dog, but no.
No, one of the first couple of days before the schedule was really in place, I had Heidi for a few days, and Georgia had her, and Georgia had gone to check on her at your house, and she messaged me. She's like, Heidi just doesn't seem right. Was she acting this way with you? And, I just, she and I both agreed that, this was her whole world different. She was there, but you weren't there, and, you didn't come back immediately. So, she definitely was feeling, your absence as well.
Yeah, if there are people out there who think dogs are just dogs, good
No,
news for
it-
you, because
yeah.
we're all dog owners. We've got one more segment to go. I hope you all can stay for that. I was going to talk about Wisteria Gardens as well, and I called them this morning and say, listen up. So we'll tell you a little bit about that in just a couple minutes on Mary Wieden and You. Hi, welcome back to Mary Wieden and You. We've been talking about what happened to me. Now I can tell you the part because I've had these wonderful people here in the studio to tell these things. We start off with our Will East. We've got Chuck Odom, Ray Priest, Sarah Priest, and Karen Atkinson here in the studio with us to talk about. And they were so heroic. They were so wonderful, and especially Sarah. She just, I mean, how you did that. I was on the floor, unconscious for the most part. But there's a little bit of awareness, apparently, taking care of me, blood all over the place. I mean, from my nose, I guess, and from my head, I must have, bonked my head on something, whether it was the floor or the countertops or whatever it was when I went down on the floor. And I've had them tell you things because I didn't know these things had happened. And so got me to St. Dominic's. And Chuck, was that your decision that I would go to St. Dominic's instead of
Yes,
Baptist?
ma'am.
Yeah, well, it was a good decision. Thank you very much. And so I was there for 2 weeks. The only thing I remember about that, two things. There are some other women in my luncheon group, the two Marys. Well, then with me, then there's three of us, and we were all together last week. Somebody goes, Mary, anyway, the two Marys came one day, and they brought me some kind of lotion, skin lotion. I remember Mary T. put this lotion all over my face, and it was so comforting. I remember that. I remember looking up at the ceiling, and there was this like a grid in a corner. I didn't know what it was for, and I thought, am I dead? And I thought, nah, dead people don't do stuff like that. Honest to God, there wasn't anybody with me. And I thought, have I had a stroke? And I thought, no, if you've had a stroke, you can't think about stuff like that. I remember one day, two ladies came and took me to x-ray my body, they said. I don't know what that was about. I never saw any x-rays or anything like that. Then the next thing I know, I was taken to, I don't remember being transported from the hospital. I don't remember being put in a car or vehicle to go to Wisteria, but I can remember looking out the window and seeing Wisteria. And I didn't know, I knew it was somewhere on Highway 80 and where that was. And I got there, and it was either that day or the next day. They said, oh, you have COVID. Oh, gee, thanks a lot. COVID. I mean, that's who gets COVID? So that was another week of lying down and, making my legs atrophy is why my legs have been kind of shaky. But they're okay now. But those people at Wisteria, and hi, everybody, they were wonderful. I mean, there were a couple of people who were like, not so much. But everybody, by and large, 99.9% of them were terrific, very helpful. One of them was, I just love her. I think it was Janice is her name. She's saying, you've got to get up now. You've got to move around. You can't lie in that bed. You have to move. You have to move. And it may hurt, but you have to do it. And she was like that for quite some period of time. And she was right. And I finally did get to where I could sit up on my own. I'd have to have them pull me up. I mean, it was crazy, but my body was just so atrophied or, so traumatized. But then I did that and finally got myself going. And I found out there were 3 levels of therapy that you take. The first one is cognitive, like how much is 5 times 5? Stuff like that, but a little more complicated. Then the next one is your upper body. And then the next one is, I called it the big enchilada, where you're still in a wheelchair. I was in a wheelchair, by the way. You'll learn eventually to walk. And then I found out, and I was like a fish for a few days, like, what, why do I have to do this? And so finally, somebody said, well, if you want to go home and you live alone, you've got to learn to walk. Okay. So I said one day, I'd like to work with somebody to teach me to walk, get me up on my feet. And they all just, oh, she's not a fish after all. Hey, y'all remember this, right? And then the day after Christmas, I would wake up early, at 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning. I'd be sitting up in a chair, door open, waiting for something to go on. And so this man came by the day after Christmas, and he said, hi, I'm Dylan. Would you like to work today? And I said, I'd love it. I didn't realize he was the head of PT to begin with. And I guess, how did I know what he meant to work? But it was get me on my feet. So we would do, in the wheelchair, we would do up and down. And then I would do those other exercises after that. And one day I had to go to the hospital, and I said, I'd like to use the walker, which I learned how to use when I had my hips. I'd like to use the walker to go to the doctor. It's too hard to put a wheelchair in a car. And he goes, forget the wheelchair. That's just in your room now. You can just sit on it if you want. You're on the walker now. Oh, okay, that's good. And folks, when you're on a walker, stand up straight and move your feet. Don't hunker over and scuffle. You don't want to do that. You want to be up like this. Anyway, so we did that. And then the next thing was going into a cane, which I learned that from the hips. hip replacements. And then we went to the cane, and then I got to come home. And so that's that. But they were really good, and I must say the food was pretty good too. Did y'all hear about that? Did y'all know any experience with Wisteria? Their food was. And by the way, they cut a commercial. I didn't know they were doing this, and I'm not in it, but which is fine. But there's a new commercial that's on the air, and there are some people there I recognize as working there. I guess they say the food in these places aren't so good, but they did a nice job. And one, I guess it was the dietitian, came by one day. She said, "What don't you like?" So I said, "Okay, liver and onions, cooked spinach, let's see, whatever stuff like that." That's pretty cool, isn't it? I guess they keep track of that, And then I got to come home, and that was a nice feeling, folks.
Yeah, it took a whole village, not just
it
us
did
here.
it ever. Oh wow,
It did.
you
It
did
played a
it.
huge part in your recovery as well.
How do I, if something happens to you all, I'm there for you too. For heaven's sakes, we don't want any of this to happen to anybody. But if something horrible happens, hey, put me in, coach.
Yes, we do have a wonderful neighborhood. So proud.
We really do. I'm really happy about our neighborhood. It's a good place to be. Really good place to be. So then I had to think about coming back to work. It was like, my doctor said March 5 will be your coming back time. And I thought that was pretty cool. And he told me last week, okay, what happened to me, folks? Apparently, I know I had anemia. I was very anemic, and I had a horrible summer with the heat, and then my air conditioning went out. Of course, this is November, but still, it was hot, and I wasn't taking good care of myself. And that's the only thing that I can think happened to me when I went out. I don't. My head just seems to take care of me in that regard. I don't remember. I remember I fell off of my horse one time, slid off of her really, and I don't remember that. And I was in the hospital I had a concussion. I was in the hospital, but this I don't know. But that's the only
I
thing.
think a lot of this was my fault.
No.
I said so many prayers that day and so many times afterwards that you would not remember.
Yes.
If it was, as traumatic to you as we experienced, that you just would not know that trauma, that you would not
No.
remember.
Well,
because
I
we
don't.
know how long you were there, what you would have been thinking if,
If I was, Chuck,
if someone was coming
yeah.
to help or not. So I have prayed so many prayers
Thank
that
you.
those traumatic memories would go away. I know it kind of leaves the puzzle, undone.
it's okay.
But
I don't need to know. I don't think I need to know that. But Chuck is the one, by the way. What was it you did?
I looked at your phone.
Well, looked at my phone and called some people. But anyway, I would say prayer from everybody that I know and people I don't know, even people in England. And, of course, it's the Lord's way. He said, like I said earlier today, Mary, it's not time for you to come home to me just yet. You've got to stay down there, and I will help you. And so there you are. Here we go, practically in tears. I'm sorry, what were you going to say?
No, I'm just
Something from
saying,
my
were
phone?
you referring to how long you were there?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you figured that out.
Well, the EMT and I both,
Yeah.
when we was laying there, when you were laying there, and he said based on the evidence there that it was apparent that you had been there since the day before, that combined with the last call that you took, was it 3:30, was it?
I think so. Yeah.
And then there were 9 calls after that you didn't answer, so.
I wouldn't have put my nightgown on until bedtime, so, I mean...
So it had to
Yeah.
be
So
about
that had
I
something
think
to
it
do
was
with
a full day. Yeah.
And I would have gone to bed early. I always go to bed early the night before I work. So Monday night I went to bed early or whatever. I guess I didn't go to bed, but
You went to sleep.
I went to sleep in an unlikely place. I mean, and you have to be humorous about it. But I have to thank so many people, including like the people at my church. Boy, they had a prayer line going. And they still do, which is pretty cool. And my priest, Father Jerry Hurley, came many times. He came to the hospital, and he came to Wisteria, too, a number of times. And, I just bowled over by the concern, and all the work that everybody did. Even praying, that's work sometimes for people. It's not easy. You have to think about the person, what you're going to do. But I am back. My doctor told me last week, he said, "You're cured." And I said, "Well, can I?" He said, "Live your life." And I said, can I mow my lawn? He said, yes, you can. And I did. And
You
it's-
sure did.
Yes, I
witnessed
did.
it.
Yeah, we were so proud
Yeah.
to see you out there.
I
But
said,
I was
"Right,
like,
Mary,
is she
it's
ready?
mowing the yard."
You know what I did though? It was not a cosmetic mow. It was because I had weeds that like 8 inches tall, and I thought the people on the other side of me, they'll have a fit if those things start blowing over there. I've got to do it. I didn't have anybody at the time to do it.
Well, we debated whether or not to come help you, but we knew that that's something you would want to do for yourself.
I did. It
You're
was
very independent and strong.
Well, it
and
was good
that's-
for my legs because they were pretty weak. But yeah, and it wasn't hot. I mean, it was not too hot, but I got it done and got the weeds knocked down. That was the important thing to do. And I said, can I ride my bike? Yes, you can do all that stuff. Live your life. So thank you all. Those of you who've been here, thank you so very, very much, 1,000 times. Thanks, Will, for coming in this morning to do this with us, too. You'll always be remembered, and you'll always be very special to me. Thank you so much. And audience, thank you. And thank Nell. We got to thank Nellie Neal, for heaven's sake. She's done the show for weeks and weeks. And I'm sure she's had about enough of it. Because she has to work Saturdays, too, and do all the other things that she does. So I appreciate everybody so much. And I will